Hey there, fellow YouTubers. This little project is for the people that want to use a prop in their game. Uh, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the toilet paper type tubing used for making puzzles. Well, I kind of have this idea for my next campaign that I'm running that I want this prop to be used extensively. So I'm going to show you how I make it, and hopefully if you like it, you could do something very similar and use it in your game. First off, take a nice piece of cardstock. It's going to have to be pretty big. You're going to first measure it out to however long you wish it to be. Mine I wish to be 9 inches long and 6 inches wide. So I'm going to do that now. After cutting it out, you grit it off to the 9 inches long by half-inch sections going the width way, that is 6 inches, so you end up with a total of 12 squares, 12 half-inch squares by 9 1-inch squares. And the next step to this is coming up with some words that you wish to use in your campaign. They could be names, they could be places, they could be answers to riddles in themselves. But the general idea of this codex, if you will, is to incorporate a feeling of mystery and awe. My best example for such a thing is if you're familiar with the Bible Code, which is a computer program which is taking a lot of the Old Testament and taking a program to figure out similarities and such in the code that could relate to the person or individuals. Well, with such a complex setup like this, it often can lead the player to believe that possibly you could make almost every single word underneath the sun. But the thing is it's a trick. You want to make sure that you plant the words that you want to be in there. And you don't need to fill every single square. In fact, if you leave at least one square blank from left to right with letters, I might be getting ahead of myself, you can actually break up and make 2-word answers, you know. Yeah, that's that. The next step in the process, for me at least personally, is making as many relatable subject matters and words that are going to be used throughout the campaign, and make sure they fit, and then jam as many as you can in here. And when you do it, don't go straight from left to right. Maybe go down and then up the scale, or up and then down the scale, because when you put it all together, you don't want to have an easy reference points for the more intelligent of your players that might be able to figure out how you did this puzzle. So I'm going to write down some words for my game, and or take the words I have written, mind you, pardon me, and fill them into my codex. Okay, as you can see, I put in letters in every square except for one, which is, I did not mention, but it is also very important to leave one individual half-inch by inch square blank, because that's where the glue will be applied when you put it on. So that's that. And the next step of this process is you're going to need one paper towel roll, cardboard. Do not need these, but for a little bit of embellishment on the ends to make it kind of look like a scroll, some pop caps, and one large base mini. I'm using a Pathfinder Piazza Online because I've noticed that the bottoms are a little bit bigger. The only reason I'm using that one. And then we're going to use that to trace out our ends, make circles and cut them out. Take those circles, apply it to the end of the tubes, after we put on our little embellishment. I'm going to do that now, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, we have the tube assembled and put together with the pop caps on the end. And of course we're going to next base coat this with flat black spray paint. But I messed up in the last segment, and I caught myself at least. Remember that this is also supposed to be the same width as this. So mine of course was 9 inches, and I advise you give yourself a little bit of room, you know, a millimeter or two or something like that, just to make sure when you glue up in the corners and such that it doesn't get out of control and it won't fit properly. Okay, well, I'm gonna spray paint this black, and I think after that, I don't know if I want silver or gold. I guess when we come back it'll be a surprise. Okay, I got my tube painted up, and I went with both silver and gold. And I'm leaving the middle black just because, if you can see, the lines from the Sharpie are also black, so it should blend to each other quite nicely, just in case you do have a bit of a gap. And also another thing that I might suggest is, before you start cutting these to pieces and rolling them, because that's the idea, is to try to get a curl in them for shape so they go on a little bit easier, is, as you can see, gingerly, I just wrote 1 through 9 on the bottom, just to make sure I don't put it on wrong, because all that effort would be for naught if you screwed up your order. So I'm going to cut and curl and put these on to here now. That'll be my next step. And here we go with the tube, or Codex, if you will, completed. And of course, like I said, there's tons and tons of possibilities with these. You can make them bigger, shorter, whatever. But the main point is, I wanted to do this to give to the players to have for an elongated amount of time, because if you put effort into a prop, me personally, I like to get as much use out of it as possible. So I made it 9 inches long and jammed it full of words. There's approximately, at last count, at least 40 words that are in here that I could use for either puzzles, riddles, or a combination of the two. And if you can see, here's one word that's already turned. Artifacts. And let's see here if I can get this to sit properly for me. You want it to be able to spin, you know, of course, independently, but you don't want it too messed up. You know, you want to be able to spin them. You want them tight enough so they stay in place, but not too tight that you can't move them around. Anyways, I hope somebody likes this and is willing to use some of the techniques that I taught you to maybe make one for yourself. Like I said, it's one of those pardon me, not artifact. One of those props that you can get a lot of mileage out of. So if you're gonna do something, go for the long run. That's how I look at it. Hope you enjoyed another installment from the Smokin' DM.